Hello, welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway podcast. That's right. Your host and tour guide is Scott Prevette, a healer, hypnotist, and a magician. And your bus driver is Jason Gobelli, also a hypnotist, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual guide. Trip with us on the Inner Revelation bus. That's right. One quick disclaimer, neither Jason, Scott, or any of our guests here today are licensed professional psychologists or psychiatrists. So please don't make any changes to any medication or treatments that you are currently on, based on the conversation that you hear here today. Just hop on the bus and enjoy the ride. Give us a like, love, or comment, and remember to share your experience with others because there is always room for more in this bus. That's right.
Hi, I'm Jason Gobelli, and welcome back to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway. We got Scott with us. Say hi, Scott.
Hey, welcome. Hello.
Today we got a special guest. We got Kryssa Bowman. We're excited to have her on. Hi, Kryssa. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, it's all our honor, and we're really excited to have you. And first, let's just get started. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Oh, well, you want me to go from A to L or M to Z? You know, there's 54 years in the making here. So
Awesome.
We just want to get a feel of what made you who you are and a little bit about you.
let's see. The Reader's Digest version, which dates me, even just saying that phrase. The Reader's Digest version is that I spent my early childhood raised amongst a bunch of sort of new age woo-woo folks. And my rebellious teenage years and early adulthood found me going in the opposite direction and wanting to find hardcore scientific evidence for any unexplainable thing out there. And so I went into applied psychology as a degree, and bioscience and biopsychology and neuroscience and all of that stuff. And applied psychology is not the touchy-feely kind. It's not therapy and counseling. It's, following various laboratory animals around in a maze and learning how they learn and attaching electrodes and seeing what happens when we do this or do that or, things like that. And also lots of self-report, human studies as well. So anyway, let's fast forward 4 kids later. So I've got a couple decades to fast forward. Yeah.
Wow.
When my youngest 2 were almost grown, I realized that I wasn't going to, I had been a chef during that whole time. So I got a degree in applied psychology, or almost got the degree. I came this close, but I say it's my academic background because the only thing I'm missing is 3 credits of math from a class that I took multiple times and failed multiple times, and I finally just gave up. But so I was a chef, putting myself through school, and also that's how I raised my kids. But my back was not allowing me to continue to do that. And I had become a private chef, a personal chef, because I had started to have some anxiety issues that were, I didn't have full-on agoraphobia, but it was, I had agoraphobic tendencies. So difficult to leave the house. And I had been in and out of counseling for this. And so what happened was sort of a perfect storm of things. So one was, after years of counseling and not really getting much movement with the agoraphobic stuff, I found hypnosis, and that helped. Nice. And then I started having sciatica, and I was like, I wonder if hypnosis would help with this. And it did. And then I started studying it because I didn't think I ever wanted to be a counselor. That's not what my interest was in. I didn't want to be a therapist or, take other people's problems home with me.
Well, with 4 kind of inherited that counselor type attitude anyway, haven't you?
What do you mean? Oh, with 4 kids? Yeah. Well, I was kind of famous for saying that I liked my kids, but I wasn't crazy about most other people's kids. No, I mean, it's kind of true though. I love my species, but I can only handle them one-on-one. I don't really like having to deal with a lot of them all at once. So I went ahead and started studying hypnosis and hypnotherapy because it had helped me so much. And I started playing around with like, what other things can it do? I created recordings for myself. And there was one I created for myself that I listened to for the weeks leading up to a surgery that I had scheduled, because I have had a lifelong rare bleeding disorder. And I knew I had to have the surgery, and I didn't want them to have to give me the stuff that they give you to, if you have a bleeding disorder, it kind of clots your blood for you. And the side effects are horrendous. So I was like, I'm going to try this. And it worked. And I went and got a full assay of all of my blood work. And my hematologist said, this is impossible. You can't just like not have a lifelong disorder after 2.5 weeks of listening to recordings. And I was like, well, I beg to differ. And here's the proof. So she ended up canceling the surgery and making me do a whole new assay and sending it off to the Mayo Clinic, because I was in like Bozeman, Montana. So we didn't have the fancy schmancy, laboratories.
Wow.
And it all came back within the range of normal, except for one thing. My platelets were still a little wonky, but everything else was within the range of normal. Some was at the high end, but it was still, like, for the first time ever, within the range of normal, just from listening to recordings. So that's when I really, I had been studying hypnosis and hypnotherapy, but that's when I kind of realized like just how powerful it really is. Like, it had helped me with agoraphobia. It had helped me with sciatica. Actually, the sciatica thing came and went a number of times. So I shouldn't say that it helped me with it then, because it kind of went away for a while, then came back for a while, went away for a while. Now it's on the out, and I'm hoping that it's permanently gone this time, but knock on wood.
So
That's where I'm at now.
You do this all through self-hypnosis?
No, just the sciatica and the bleeding disorder. The sciatica, I've been working self-hypnosis off and on for a while for this. There's extenuating circumstances to that I found that I can talk to you about, because you guys are kind of into the woo, I think, right? Yeah. Okay.
First, for our listeners, why don't you define the woo so we understand?
Yeah, let's hear about the
So things
woo-woo.
that can't be quantitatively verified through current scientific measurements. That doesn't mean
Perfect.
that there won't be. We just don't yet have them. That's how I describe it.
Nice.
The agoraphobia, it was addressed through a hypnotherapist. Like, I had sessions as the client, so that wasn't self-hypnosis. But so sciatica, this was an interesting thing. So like I said, it came and went, came and went, came and went. When I started having communication with an aspect of my consciousness that I now know is my higher self, this part of me that loves me unconditionally, supports me, wants the very best for me, but tends to be hands off, like a doting grandparent. It's like, oh, please don't do that. Oh, she did the thing, but not like intrusive, not invasive, because it knows that I need to learn these things. Like, I came here for a reason. I have these things that I want to learn. Anyway, in communication and conversations with my higher self, as a client, because I have my own hypnotherapist, by the way, I asked my hypnotherapist to then ask my higher self the question, what's up with the sciatica? Why does it keep coming back? And here was the answer. Hold on to your hats, guys. The answer was that I wasn't done with it yet, that I'd learned and uncovered all of the trauma pieces and resolved those, but that there was, well, not all, maybe most of them, but that there was one important thing that I needed to go through, which was there were people that I still needed to meet and network with that I wouldn't meet and network with if I didn't have a reason to seek them out. So basically, I needed to get into contact with people that were doing somatic healing. But if I didn't have a literal pain in my body, I wouldn't have sought them out. And then I wouldn't have learned that piece, that component as well. And so when my higher self sort of said, well, there's people you still need to meet that you won't meet if we take this pain away completely. Like, you just won't be motivated to. Why would you? And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just keep my eyes peeled, because I would really like the pain was almost gone, but not completely. So I just started paying attention to every person I met and wondering, are you the person? Are you the person? Like you? And then I did. I met this woman who does somatic healing in Bozeman, Montana as a physical therapist, a very specific kind. And that just sort of cracked things wide open for me.
Nice. So the
yeah.
universe put you in the right place at the right time, just like it's putting us in the right place at the right time right now. So we get to have you on here. So we're pretty excited.
Oh,
So
yes,
there-
it's kismet.
that's right. That's right. Everything works out the way it's supposed to. So we've been listening to some of your stuff and everything. So it's interesting that you have a lot to say about the ego and throwing the ego out there in your hypnotic session. So
Yes.
what's that all about, huh?
Not that we need to get rid of the ego. In fact, it's impossible. I don't think we can. I really don't. I mean, we need it, right? It's built into the wiring for a reason. But what I have found is that when we include our own ego in our sessions, as a change worker or practitioner of any sort, there's two things. One of two things can happen. One is you think, oh my God, I'm not going to be good enough. What if I can't fix them? What if I forget this or don't know enough about that? Or, like you're all tied up in the lack of worthiness and I'm not good enoughness. That's all ego. That's wounded ego, but it's still ego. Or conversely, the other side is, I'm amazing and wonderful and everything I do is like, everything I touch is gold. And if my client doesn't get better, it's not my fault. It's theirs. They didn't do their part. Again, not helpful, right? Both of those posit you as the main character when in fact your client needs to be the main character. You're there for them to support them. It's not the other way around. Unfortunately, this particular field tends to attract very large egos. And I think in some cases, especially when it's like for entertainment purposes, stage hypnosis, street hypnosis, that's a great, great thing. I think it's even okay when it's hypnotherapy, as long as that hypnotist can take the ego and put it on the shelf and just be like, this isn't needed right now because I'm not the main character.
So I was talking to some other hypnosis today, and we were talking about the ego and the confidence and how confidence is so much needed in hypnosis, but then that ego can get out of place sometimes. So when I was talking to you, I was going to have your opinion on that.
Up real quick.
There's different types of confidence, right?
Yes.
There's the kind of confidence that comes from having done a thing a number of times and now it's familiar to you. And so that kind of confidence, you almost like are excited when something different happens, something unusual, something unexpected. And then there's the kind of confidence which you're hanging purely on your ego, which is that I am amazing. I am incredible. I can do anything. Nothing's going to stop me. I don't think that kind of confidence is helpful in a hypnotherapy session. And I feel like, energetically speaking, clients can tell. There's like a cognitive dissonance going on because a person who has to put on the mask of confidence, well, they wouldn't have to put on a mask of it if they were truly confident. If they had that kind of confidence that comes from deep within, where they just trust and know that whatever happens in the session, it's going to be exactly what the client needs. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the client is going to always immediately resolve whatever their issue is. Maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe there's something else they have to take care of first. Maybe it's an issue that's nested inside of another issue that they haven't yet discovered yet. So we have to peel back the layers. It doesn't mean that. And I feel like if a client doesn't get immediate results of what they expect, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was a failed session. I think that as long as the therapist, the practitioner shows up with true interest, curiosity, and support, they want the best for their client. That client's going to feel that. They're going to feel like that embrace of just support and empowerment. And it's kind of impossible to go wrong under those circumstances.
Exactly.
But if you're coming in with like, I am the best there ever has been, then what happens if the client doesn't get the result they want and you're hanging the result on your own ego? Right?
Exactly.
And then you're also robbing them. You're robbing your client of being able to take credit for the fact that they healed themselves because they did. Because you know what? It's not you. It's not us. We're not the ones that are healing them.
And so now that you're saying that, we all know that sometimes the fruit doesn't come when you plant the seed, it comes at a later time. So we all know that. But you were talking about if it doesn't work, this and the ego. And I'm wondering, because I think this may be true, that you might have God, higher power, self, universe, energies, whatever. Do you pull on that for your strength also whenever you're doing your hypnosis or woo-woo stuff?
Well, so I don't have any one specific belief that I ascribe to. I do have trust that there is a higher aspect to my consciousness because I've been in communication with it. I have empirical, my own empirical evidence of it. But as far as my clients go, I don't assume that I'm going to be able to channel that at all times. I just kind of go into every session with like, I wonder what's going to happen with this session. I wonder how this client is going to find the resources to help themselves. I wonder what part I'll get to play in facilitating that conversation within all of the multiple, aspects of their consciousness. I don't give guarantees. I guarantee that you're going to feel better, but I don't give guarantees that you're going to like immediately resolve whatever the issue is, and for some people, like, with my sciatica, for example, or the sciatica that was visiting my body, not mine. I'm not laying ownership on that. But the sciatica issue, I had gotten it to the point where when it was at its worst, I almost went on disability because I could barely walk. But I had gotten it to the point where it was just annoying. Like on a scale of 0 to 10, it was consistently like a 3. And I was able to, through self-hypnosis and also working with my hypnotherapist, get it to turn all the way down to 1 and only ramp up when needed. So when I say when needed, there were times when I wasn't paying attention and I needed to be paying attention, or I wasn't being mindful, and it would benefit me to be mindful. And so then it would like ratchet up a little bit and I'd be like, oh, and it's literally in my butt, right? So I have a pain in my butt whenever I really needed to be like woken up a little. Yeah.
Nice. So you were talking about the part.
Pain in the butt alarm going off.
Exactly. I still have it actually, but now it's turned down to pretty much 0 to 1. I hardly ever even notice it. But when it starts, it's like an early warning system for me. When it kicks up, I'm like, oh, I'm maybe not drinking enough water, or, oh, I haven't stretched enough today, or, oh, I forgot to take potassium, or whatever it is, right? It's like a little, and it might be something external too, like, oh, pay attention to this person. Maybe this is something you need to notice for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we also heard you do a lot with parts work and ego state work. So what's that all about?
Yeah. I liken it. Well, okay. So I learned it from Mike Mandel. So it is ego states, but Gordon Emerson is where Mike Mandel got it from. And he now calls it resource states. And I resonate with that term a little more. So I call it resource states because we're not only dealing with the ego. Mostly we're dealing with the ego, but not always, not just the ego. So yeah. So parts work, for people who are listening who maybe aren't familiar with what that is, the preframe that I give is that every person has between 50 and maybe 150 or 200 different parts to their personality. It's not different personalities. It's just different parts to the personalities. In psychology, we would call them sub-personalities. And each one of those parts has sort of a different job, right? And so the people who follow me or are familiar with me are going to be like, God, not this old tired metaphor, Kryssa, please. But here we go, because it accurately describes it.
Bring it.
There's the part of me that makes my grocery list. It's one part. There's another part of me that goes grocery shopping. And then there's a part of me that gets hungry. If the hungry part is like there when I'm making the list, my list is very different from what it would be if it's like the healthy part, right? Same with shopping. But here's what happens. It's usually the healthy part of me, the part of me that has all sorts of optimism and idealism about like taking good care of my body and what I'm going to feed it and how I'm going to honor it and self-love. And so I come home with all these vegetables and whole grains and, I'm planning on juicing a bunch of stuff, but then I get hungry, and the hungry me hates the part of me that keeps bringing home all that stuff. And it's like, where's the chocolate ice cream? Where's the Cheetos? So those are just different parts. There's a part of me that, you know, the wounded little girl part that felt kind of rejected by friends or abandoned by a family member or stuff like that. And then there's also the part of me that right here, right now, I had to call forth the part of me that is happy in the spotlight and being on stage, which is not all of me. Because as I said, remember, I was agoraphobic. So there's definitely a part of me that prefers to just sort of like hunker down and do my own quiet little thing.
So now I got another
So-
question for you. This is a good question, and it's a personal question. But isn't there a part of you that wants to get those extra 3 units so you can get those initials?
Yeah, you know, I don't really care anymore, honestly. If you had asked me that 10 years ago, I would have said yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, you know, it's just that. That's all it is. It's just a degree. It's just initials. It's just something that like society can stamp me with. But I myself, I learned everything I needed to learn out of that degree.
Absolutely.
I'm missing three units of statistics.
And it
So-
sounds to me like in your practice, you use a lot of the stuff, not only in that degree, but a lot of the stuff from your parents that you learned growing up that you bring into your
Oh yeah, well it came full circle is what happened. I rejected all the woo for a long time. When I started doing hypnotherapy, probably I got about a year in, I just started randomly having sessions where people, I wasn't intending for this to happen, but people would suddenly spontaneously go into a past life regression, or spontaneously start talking to spirit guides, or spontaneously find themselves in the Akashic records reading a book about their soul contracts. And these were things that I was not in any way inviting into the session. And I also, it kind of scared me because I was like, I wasn't trained for this. What do I do with this? What I decided to do at the time was obviously read everything I could about it from other people who had been doing it. But I decided I was going to just look at it as like from the point of view of a research scientist. I'm going to just take the data points. I'm going to let the clients have whatever their experience is without my interpretation or my belief system or lack thereof getting involved. And that maybe if all of this is just a metaphor, a permission slip for their mind to release or work through or resolve whatever it needs to, that's okay. So maybe it's not really a past life and there's no way to know, right? But by the client having this experience that seems to be a past life experience, they're able to resolve or release or let go of whatever the trauma is. So I just started looking at it like it's a permission slip.
Oh, I was saying that's a great way to look at it. You're giving yourself permission to heal, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe that's the same with the Akashic records and the soul contracts and cord cutting and all these things. Maybe it's just a symbolic method that the subconscious mind comes up with in order to give the permission to go ahead and just be done with this, problem.
Well, it
Yeah.
sounds not only like you're changing the lives in your clients, but your clients are also changing your life.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, what's most interesting, I think, is that whatever I'm kind of struggling with in my own life, not even telling anybody, it's just all internal. I'm just having some like little existential crisis of some sort. I will start attracting clients that are going through the same kind of struggle. And I'm like, how did that happen? When it first started happening, I had, again, a little bit of imposter syndrome because I'm like, how can I help them with this thing when I don't feel like I've solved it myself, you know? But what I found is that if you're just a couple steps ahead, just a little bit, doesn't have to be, you know, leap years ahead, but just a few steps ahead, then you can always help the client. So, and what would happen is the client would help me too. By facilitating their conversation with other aspects of their consciousness, it would help me to continue the work that I was doing within my own self. So absolutely, it's very symbiotic.
It does sound like there's a spiritual side to all this then, doesn't it?
I just don't like to use that word.
That's right. That's right. Plenty of ways to describe it. So, okay, so now let's go back to the other thing that you got coming up. You got this event coming up where you're going to do this talk on ego. And
oh, right, at the Elman Legacy Conference. I'm also going to be at Hypno Thoughts Live in July. But yeah, there's
We
two
plan
things.
to meet you in person at HypnoTalks,
Oh, good. Yeah, that'll be nice.
face to face. And anyway, so you're going to do the thing on the ego. So the big question that I was wondering is though, usually when someone finds something out like they spot it in themselves. So where did this come in you where you just spotted,
Oh,
oh,
yeah,
I need to do
totally. That's a great question, by the way. Good job. Well, I, like most humans, came equipped with an ego. And what I noticed was that, early on when I was first doing this, I had that whole like the two-sided coin of the ego, which is like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be good enough, and then having to sort of just pretend, like fake it till you make it kind of a thing, and then I found myself getting a little arrogant, a little cocky about it, like, oh, I can do this. And then I was like, this seems problematic. It didn't quite feel right. It didn't fit well. And I also noticed that there were other people in my sphere that were really kind of bugging the crap out of me. And you know what they say, when like you're pointing your finger one way, there's three more pointing back at you. So I would find myself being really bugged by somebody, and I'm like, why does this person bug me so much? 9 times out of 10, it was because they just had this gargantuan ego, and I recognized that it bugged me because I have that potential too. And so in order to keep myself as authentic as possible and not stampeding in with like, an ego the size of Texas or whatever, I would very intentionally make the whole session about the client, not about me. But by doing that, it automatically solved the imposter syndrome issue, just by going in with that curiosity and that interest. The way that I liken it is, like when you're a little kid, the very first time that you go up on the high diving board at the swimming pool, like you're terrified and you're looking up there, you probably like look at that thing all summer long. And then one day the curiosity just overcomes the terror. And so curiosity is the antidote.
I think a lot of that has to do with trust as well. I remember watching my son on top of the high diving board. He saw others jump, and I know he had the belief and the faith that he could do it, but he just had to trust himself and let the little feet leave the top of the board.
Yep. And trust that he would be okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. And that's something that comes up in my sessions a lot, because a lot of people's issues come down to a lack of trust. And the thing that I remind myself and them of is that if we're sitting here talking, that means right now we both have a 100% success rate of getting through everything.
Yeah, nice. So how do you
what's not to trust?
And how do you help install trust in your clients?
That's where the higher consciousness comes in. So, you can do a lot of work with the subconscious, which are, that's where like anxiety and the protectiveness and the lack of trust and all that stuff comes from. But the higher self has absolute faith and trust and belief and love and all of that. And as soon as a person just sort of opens themselves up to feeling that again, and they all have it because we were all born with it, right? I mean, every baby is born with that installed. There's not such a thing as a self-loathing baby. There's no baby that hates their chubby thighs or thinks that, they're ugly or unlovable or anything like that, right? So we all have that capacity. It might even be our default setting, honestly, if we can peel away all of those other layers of like subconscious protectiveness and anxiety and lack of trust. But once I have my clients connect with that part and sort of let it into them and let it flood them and just fill their love cup until it's overflowing, and then anchor that in, it just changes everything. And it might take a few sessions. It's not always like they might have that wonderful experience in one session, but then they go back home, something triggers them, they pull back into the habit of, of self-doubt or whatever. But after a few, like say 3 sessions, it's and I've also given them homework. So they have like things that they have to do in between to sort of like keep the ball rolling. But yeah, after about 3 sessions, most people come away, I mean, at least according to the testimonials, they come away with a pretty great self-perception.
Oh, we know you do a wonderful job. And
well, thank you.
But
it's not about me, right? It's my clients. They're the ones who are making changes. I'm just facilitating.
I hate to use that awful, awful, dirty S word again, but it almost sounds like it's spiritual in nature, how their higher consciousness just comes into play.
I'm not saying it's not spiritual. I just don't use that word. I find it a little problematic. It's been co-opted by some groups that I don't really want to be associated with. But what I call it is consciousness and frequency and energy. And these are things that we actually do have, to some degree anyway, the ability to measure scientifically. So it's not quite as woo. That said, I have had some experiences myself that would be firmly embedded in the metaphysical. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your website said, or your bio said something about you had 2 near-death experiences. Tell us
Yes.
about that.
All right. Well, I haven't ever really told anybody the full near-death experience, and we don't have enough time to go into it right now. I've had 2. I don't remember the second one very well. As I get older and I'm doing more of the self-work, bits and pieces of it are coming back to me, but I do remember the first one quite well. And I'm going to be straight up honest. It was such a beautiful experience that I didn't really want to come back. And I spent the next 3 decades just not really wanting to be here. Like, I was here, but I wasn't happy about it. I felt obligated. And so I wasn't really living. I was surviving, but not thriving, which also led to the agoraphobia. There was all kinds of other stuff going on. But it was an extraordinarily beautiful experience. I felt that sort of universal love of singularity of consciousness flowing through every aspect of me. And I could see just how like small and kind of almost insignificant this current incarnation was, except that when you're here, of course, it feels like the biggest thing in the world because you're, here. But because of that, it almost made me sort of turn away even more for a while, because I was like, I can't think about that, because I didn't really want to be here after all that. I wanted to be there, but I had a daughter, so I couldn't, because I also saw or not really saw, I heard there was a conversation that I had with another aspect of consciousness, we'll just call it that sort of showed me in a feeling sense what would happen if I didn't come back, and that it would be setting off a whole new path of generational trauma, because my daughter would be growing up without her mom. And so I was like, okay, well, I got to come back. But I wasn't happy about it. I was 18. I wasn't happy about it. And so in order for me to basically just dig into being alive, I had to just turn my back on all of that stuff.
Well, we're
for a long time.
Excited to come back. Yeah.
I mean, it got a little heavy. This is why I haven't really talked about that near-death experience, in the public eye in any great detail, because it is pretty heavy. It was the most beautiful, extraordinary, exquisite experience of my entire life. But because of that, it also was one of the most painful to come back to this. But knowing that that's there, honestly, I have no fear of death. But what I have had is a fear of life. I don't really have that as much anymore, but I did for a long time.
And you said you were 18.
Yeah, I was 18 when I had my daughter.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm glad that
and so in order to survive those, early years of parenting and growing up myself, I had to just sort of put all of that over here. I couldn't think about it. I couldn't look at it. I had to compartmentalize.
I totally get that. I had some crazy years in my youth, in my teens, and in the early 20s too. And I'm grateful today because I believe it helps me be who I am today. So
Beautiful.
we are grateful for everything that's happened.
I was in my late 20s before I had my daughter. So it's different. I was in the military during the late teens and 20s.
Yeah. I definitely have a whole different appreciation for everything that I've been through now. And a lot of that comes from having those conversations with my higher consciousness. The person that I am today, I love and I'm proud of, And I would not be this person if I hadn't had those experiences, and not just had the experiences, but process the trauma of them so that I could get to the nuggets of wisdom that's on the other side. Because I feel like all trauma does have wisdom at the other side of it. But if you get stuck in the trauma, it's hard to see that. It's hard to see that there's wisdom on the other side. There's gifts, there's little superpowers, you know?
Sure.
Now, now that we've dealt with all that heavy bullshit, let's get on to some, how do we get a hold of you, get these weekly sessions with you, and how do people reach you and get in contact with you?
Well, I feel like I'm super visible, but that could be because I'm also sensitive to it. So I think all you got to do is type in my name and bam, I'm everywhere, but that's probably not accurate. So KryssaMarieBowman.com, and it's spelled Krys as in Sam, S as in Sam again, A, and then Marie, Marie, Bowman, BOWMAN.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Kryssa Marie Bowman. And then my social media handle is Kryssa Liss. So it's Kryssa _LYS, Kryssa Liss. So you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff too. I also have Quantum Journeys Hypnosis Academy, which you can look up by that. So Quantum Journeys Hypnosis.com will take you to the academy. It's a fully certifying hypnotherapy program. It actually it's dual certificates. You get one from Quantum Journeys Hypnosis and one from International Hypnosis Association upon graduation.
Nice, nice. And so that's for people studying to be hypnotists or people that are already hypnotists?
Both.
Oh.
We have both. Yep, it's fully certifying. So people who have never studied it before, we have a few of those. And then we have others that have been doing hypnosis for a while and they want to add this to their toolbox.
Nice. So the quantum is the woo?
Actually, the quantum is looking at the woo through scientific lens. So it's the science of consciousness, which is we're learning more and more about it. So that's where the quantum comes in. Yeah.
Nice. So it sounds pretty exciting. It sounds like
I think so.
On.
Yeah. And there's live training taking place April 1st through 5th in downtown historic Wilmington, North Carolina. So anybody who's interested in doing the online program, there is the option to also do the live training if you prefer. And there's going to be lots of one-on-one sessions and all kinds of, and I don't know if you know much about Wilmington, North Carolina, but there's plenty of paranormal stuff that happens downtown. So anybody who's kind of curious about that, they'll be submerged in it.
Nice, nice. Well, not only do you have that, where you're teaching the lessons, teaching hypnotherapists, teaching people how to do this, teaching a little bit of the woo, but you're also a speaker. So you're traveling and speaking at all these events. So what's that like?
It's exciting. Yeah. I didn't realize that was a thing that I would be so comfortable doing, but maybe it's just because I'm a little bit neurodivergently spicy, as they say, neurospicy. But I'm much more comfortable on a stage talking to people than I am actually in the crowd. So I feel much more at home, like giving the classes and teaching the things than I do like just being surrounded by a bunch of people like at a party or something. So yeah.
Nice. So the person on the stage that used to bother you is all of a sudden you.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
How about that?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes.
Hopefully I'm hanging most of my ego up on the the bookshelf or something before I enter. Because I feel like and I don't think this is too woo. I think this is more like a mission statement. But my job on stage is to whatever the audience, the students, the whatever are giving to me in the form of their attention and maybe their respect or their interest. I want to then take it and use it to empower them. I don't want to just take it.
Nice.
And then wrap it around myself and stroke my ego with it. I want to like take it in and then give it back in the form of empowering them. And I feel really strongly about that.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like instead of you taking the credit, you're giving the credit to your higher consciousness anyway.
For a good, I don't know how much, maybe 70-80% of Quantum Journeys Hypnosis, I would absolutely have to say that's true. Yeah, these things just would come into my mind fully formed.
Nice.
And I would go, oh, that's an interesting way to do that. I wonder what would happen if I did that. And it would just like in the session, I would start doing it. I'd be like, I wonder who's driving the car now. It wasn't my conscious mind, that's for sure. So yeah, it's kind
So
of
it's-
exciting.
Jason's on the bus. There you go, Jason. You get another job driving her car.
That's right. Now it sounds to me that you use a lot of intuition base in when you're working with your clients, and a lot of this is based on,
Yeah.
and it just comes out different each time. It's intuition.
Yeah, and that's always been the case with me. I think I've had that since I was a little kid. I actually used to have an imaginary friend and, all that stuff too. The one time that it left me completely was when I tried to medicate for ADHD. I absolutely have ADD. I wish I had the H. I don't have the H anymore. Now I just have the ADD, and so I have to actually like intentionally exercise because I don't have the H part. But when, let's see, it's like 2013, I think, because I was late diagnosed. I was an adult with it in 2013. And I did, in fact, try a couple of different types of prescriptions to help with focusing and stuff. And they helped with focusing, but they killed my intuition. Like the thing that I was most like used to using to navigate life with was suddenly silent. So that was weird.
They
So
tell me they tell me I got ADHD too. I say, don't put me in that damn box. Come on now.
I'm okay with it. It actually describes a lot of what's going on with my brain. So I'm grateful for that, but I don't necessarily accept it as like a disorder. I just think it's it's a different way for the mind to work. And I don't know that I would be able to put together all of the things that I put together if I didn't have it, because I'm able to pull resources and knowledge and information and wisdom from all different kinds of places really easily because of it.
It's a gift of being able to do multiple things
Absolutely.
at the same time. Wonderful gift. Yeah. Yeah.
Or hyper focus, which is the other side of that.
Sure.
So like I can take a deep dive into something that fascinates me and not come up for air for weeks on end. But that's how I got the whole course done. Quantum Journeys Hypnosis. Yeah, I was just like so fixated on it and just so like I was in my element, just like, so much passion for it. And then I emerged and I was like, hey guys, guess what? I have a thing.
Nice. Nice. Well, it's wonderful. Scott, you have any other questions?
Man, it's a great story. I'm glad we got to learn all we have.
Yes. And Kryssa, do you have anything else you want to say?
I just thank you so much for having me on, and apologies for being a little bit scattered. It was one of those days, but hopefully I made some sense.
You made plenty of sense, and we feed on scattered because that's who we are. So we're
Perfect.
just grateful for that.
That's a good fit.
You're in the right spot. So we're just glad you're here. We've really enjoyed driving down your magical psyche highway today and finding out a little bit about you.
What a great name. I love the name of your podcast. How fun.
I was told it was too big, so that made me think, it's pretty cool. So we're staying with it.
Well, I have a podcast of my own coming out, if you don't mind me plugging it.
Oh, please.
Sure. That's why you're here.
Quantum Journeys podcast.
What is
going to be
Nice.
Quantum Journeys podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, not necessarily all about hypnosis. It'll be sort of the intersection of hypnosis and the science of consciousness and concepts of quantum physics and
Wonderful.
all that fun stuff. So yeah.
We try to do alternative health, and we'll let you know our next interview is with a guy by the name of Zachariah Grace, who does healing through the American flute and music. So it'll be
Nice. Beautiful.
Very talented guy. So that's going to be exciting.
Reiki master and a flute instructor.
Yes.
Wonderful. What a great combination. Yeah, I love sound healing. Yes.
So sound healing. So it's
And I work with a lot of energy workers. I myself am not certified in that, but I work with a lot of people that are. So, and utmost of respect for them.
Kryssa, you might not be certified in energy work, but it sounds to me like you do a lot of energy work every time you deal with a client. So we'll just leave it at that.
I actually do, but it's not me doing it. I actually have them do it. No, I'm not even kidding. Like I'll have them pull the energy in themselves. I don't have any need for that. They need it. I've got my own. So, great.
Wrap it up right here. We'll put your information up there, and we're glad to have you. It's been wonderful. And for the viewers out there, it's been great. We've got to travel on Kryssa's magical psyche highway today. If you like us, give us a thumbs up. If you think we're assholes, give us a thumbs down. Please comment. Let us know a little bit about it. Follow us and say, hey, look at these guys, check these guys out, or say, hey, these guys, check out these fools. We don't care. We just want you to comment, and we want you to come back next week. So we're glad you're here. We're so grateful to have Kryssa here, and what a wonderful show. Scott?
What a great trip it was.
Wonderful. Thanks
Well,
again.
take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Wow, what a trip. Thanks for taking that journey with us today. Please like us, share us, and enlighten us with your views of the topics we drove into today. We appreciate you and love reading your comments. Thanks again, and we hope to see you back on the bus next week. That's right.